Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. In this video we're going to do some cost allocation, and in this example we're going to use the step-down distribution method for allocating the support center direct costs down into the mission center functions of our organization in order to identify the full costs of our mission centers. So we have two mission centers in this organization. We have a soup kitchen and a counseling center, and we know their direct costs, the costs that are directly associated with their day-to-day functioning, which is $500,000 for the soup kitchen and $50,000 for the counseling center. But we want to know their full costs. How much does it cost for us to operate the soup kitchen? These are the two reasons why our organization would exist in the first place. And there are other costs in our organization that are not part of our mission exactly. They're not directly connected to the functioning of the purpose of our existence, but they are supporting those functions, and they do make it possible for the soup kitchen and the counseling center to function properly and to even exist. They just are not providing the day-to-day carrying out the day-to-day mission of those centers. And so what we need to do is take these two cost centers' direct costs and allocate them out so that there's no more cost recognized in these two cost centers, these two support cost centers, and allocate them down to these mission centers. And we're going to use a step-down method. And in the step-down method, what we do is decide which of these two, or however many support centers you have, but in this case, which of these two support centers we want to start with our allocation process. And we will first allocate from that first-ranked support center down into the other support center as well as to the other mission centers. And then we will go to the next ranked support center, and its direct costs will include its costs will include its direct costs that we had originally, as well as the costs that were allocated to it from the previous support center. And then we will allocate out to the other two mission centers. So let's kind of dive into this example here. This example has information on the purchasing activity of the organization as well as its personnel. And when I look at this, I see that the organization actually does quite a lot of purchasing through its administrative unit. And so this purchasing center, I'm going to make a judgment to say that this purchasing center is going to be the first center I'm going to want to allocate out its support costs, because so much of what it does supports this administrative function. And so I'm going to allocate out this $25,000 to all the other three cost centers, and then I will allocate the administrative costs out to just these last two cost centers, the missions cost centers. So what will that look like when I think about what actually matters? So I'm not going to allocate anything from the purchasing center back to itself. So I will just want to be able to recognize these counts in the purchase orders that are relevant to my allocation decision, because I'm going to allocate out, remember, to this administrative. And so the sum of that group is here. This only 1,000 transactions of this 1,029 transactions that we had originally that I'm going to be dealing with. And then when I get to the personnel, the administrative, and I'm going to use my personnel count to allocate my administrative costs, I'm only going to now consider the soup kitchen the 92 FTE in the soup kitchen and the 6 FTE in the counseling, because I'm not going to allocate back up to purchasing. I've already pulled all the money out of purchasing, and in the step-down method, we don't go backward. We only step down, moving towards our mission centers. So I will sum these two. So there's a total of 98 FTEs that I'll be using in allocating out the administrative costs, and there's a total of 1,000 purchase orders. So the next thing to do is to just identify the proportions. So it's this 950 purchase orders divided by the total 1,000. So I know that's going to be 95%, but I'll just lock in the row of 1,000 so that I can then autofill down, and there's the 1% from of purchase orders out of this 1,000 that go to the soup, that are performed for the soup kitchen, and the 4% that are performed for the counseling center. And then the same thing happens over here. I can actually just autofill over this way, and I get this 92 out of the 98 that are of the 94% of the personnel in the lower cost centers are supported by administration. So I'll just double check. We don't always have it so clean, and so it's good to identify that we still have the right percentages so that we haven't accidentally maybe autofilled down and brought in the wrong numbers or the wrong cells. So we're dealing with 100% of the allocation here. So you can see already here this little step down, right? We don't allocate anything back from purchasing to itself, so we're allocating out to the other 3, and then we come down to 2 left to be allocated. Now this step down only happens through as we march our way through our various support centers. So if we had 5 support centers, we would have a rank order for each of the 5, and we would just work through. We would have 4, 3, 2, 1. We would just work our way through these steps till we've allocated everything down to the very last. All of the support center costs have been allocated out to the mission centers as well as out sequentially to the different support centers until we've allocated everything out. And then the last department's costs just get allocated out to the mission centers, and then we're done. So here, what we'll do, we only have these 2 cost centers. So we'll come down here now to actually do the allocation. So we will subtract the $250,000 here, and I'm going to sum this row, and I want to see it go to 0. I'm subtracting the $250,000 because I'm going to allocate it out to these other 3 cost centers. And so this one is going to be this $25,000 multiplied by 95%. So 95% of the purchasing activity occurs in the administrative cost center. And if I lock in this $25,000 here, I can just autofill down, and it will grab the next percentage in row, multiply it by there, and I will want to sum across the column to double check that I've pulled out $25,000 and I've allocated out $25,000, so I've fully allocated all $25,000 out. So now there's no money left in purchasing, the full cost of purchasing, we've got it down to 0. And then in the purchasing center's costs. I've just tracked it to see where that came out of purchasing, and then this is where it went to some to administration, some to the soup kitchen, some to counseling. And so my now I move to my next step, and my next step is to allocate out the administration costs just down here to the soup kitchen and the counseling center. Now this is a common place for computational error, because what we will think about doing is going and grabbing this 280,000, and we really can't just grab the 280,000. What we need to do is recognize that we need to reduce this row by 303,750, right? Our new administration costs to be allocated out include its original direct costs, as well as the costs that were added to it from the purchasing. And so I can take this and this value, and now I've allocated out the full cost. I've got my full cost down to 0, and then this becomes the amount that I need to allocate out. And so I will take 280 plus 23,750, and I will multiply that by the 95% of the FTE that are in the person that administration allocates. It is the basis that the administration allocates to the soup kitchen. So there's that money goes down there. And then I'll do that again. I'll get the full costs of that were now in the administration department, and I'll multiply it by the 6% to be allocated to the counseling center. Okay. So now if I've done this correctly, my total here in column E of these will be 0, and this one is already 0. I've fully allocated out all of the cost to administration. So that's 0. And then another check to see I've done this correctly is that the total cost for the whole organization should still be 855,000. Okay, so I'm good here. This is the full cost of the soup kitchen using the step-down allocation method with prioritizing purchasing as the first support center to be allocated in the step-down process, and then administration is the second. Okay, I hope that video is helpful.